Hey everyone, welcome back. We have some pretty big news that just came in, and it's all about the royal family. It sounds like something really interesting is happening behind the scenes at Buckingham Palace. We're hearing that King Charles has started a formal process, and it's got everyone talking. It feels like something unexpected is going on, and it might change things for the royal family in a big way. There's talk about a strategy shift, all because of a report connected to Prince William. People are saying that this is all about moving forward, but also remembering the past and learning from it. Some folks think it's super important to keep up traditions, but others are starting to wonder if some old ways still make sense today. The big question everyone is asking is whether we're still having the biggest impact we could be having. This whole situation has made people really curious about trust, family relationships, and what might be happening inside the palace walls. Royal fans everywhere are trying to figure out what Prince William's report could have said, and why it seems to have changed the whole mood at the palace. But is there more to this royal drama than we even know? We want to hear from you. Do you think Prince William's report was enough to change how King Charles sees Queen Camilla, or is this just another royal misunderstanding? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoy royal news, make sure to subscribe so we can keep bringing you the latest updates. So, the whole thing starts with what's being called Prince William's secret report. For a long time, King Charles and Queen Camilla looked like a super strong team, always together at royal events and showing a united front to the public. From the outside, everything seemed totally fine and calm. But then, things changed. According to reports, Prince William made a surprising move behind closed doors. Instead of just having a private chat with his dad about his worries, he quietly watched what was going on inside the royal household for months. He carefully gathered information, noticing things that kept happening, and put it all together in a big, secret report. This report was meant for only one person, the king. The story goes that it was sealed up and delivered to the palace late at night, after most of the staff had gone home. That one detail made everyone pay attention, because it wasn't just a casual note. It was a really important private document, just for the king's eyes, suggesting William thought this information was way too serious for a simple conversation. This delivery got people asking a ton of questions. What could make the future king do something so unusual? Why write everything down instead of just telling his father? And what was in those pages that could change how King Charles saw things almost immediately? These questions have sparked all kinds of talk among royal watchers. Some are wondering if the report really revealed a big secret, or if it just added more mystery to life inside the palace. But the story doesn't say the report came out of nowhere. It was the result of months of William quietly watching, taking notes, and getting more and more concerned about things happening behind the scenes. The real story started way before the report was delivered, with small moments that, when you looked at them together, showed a more worrying picture. That's what we're going to get into now. William's report is said to have affected the strong relationship between King Charles and Camilla. But was it written out of emotion, or did he really study certain problems in the palace before showing it to his dad? And why choose such a formal approach instead of just explaining his worries privately? Let's find out about William's effort to gather information. This is where it gets even more interesting. According to the story, Prince William's actions weren't just a sudden emotional reaction or a personal family fight. Instead, he was really careful and calculated before talking to the king. Instead of just confronting the issue right away, William spent months quietly paying attention to what was happening. He watched changes, listened to trusted staff, looked at certain situations, and wrote down things he thought his father needed to know. At first, all these moments seemed like they didn't connect. Maybe a staff member left, a trusted advisor wasn't as involved, or the way information moved around the palace changed. On their own, each thing seemed small, just normal palace stuff. But as more of these things kept happening, William started to see a pattern. The big question was whether these were just separate incidents, or if they were all connected to something bigger. Reports say some longtime palace workers, people with tons of experience, started to feel uncomfortable with some changes. Some asked to be moved to different jobs, while others felt like they were losing their influence. These situations created a feeling of uncertainty for some people inside the palace. Those who had worked there for decades and knew all the royal rules started to wonder if the old ways were being replaced by something different. For William, the worry wasn't about just one thing. It was about the pattern, a series of small moments that together seemed to show something much bigger. That's why he decided his dad needed to see all the facts clearly, not just hear rumors or have incomplete conversations. He wanted his dad to see a detailed account of what had been happening. But the most surprising part isn't that William was worried, it's what the report supposedly claimed about a change in power inside the palace. So, William spent months gathering info, but was this report a necessary warning, or was it just about normal palace stuff? Let's find out more about the pattern he found. This is where the story took a big turn. The report wasn't just one complaint or worry. Instead, it had a collection of different situations that, together, painted a bigger picture of what was going on. It included details about lots of staff changes, how a close group of Camilla's advisors was getting more influence, questions about how some palace decisions were being made, concerns about money, and changes in how info was reaching the top royals. Each thing on its own might not seem like a big deal. A staff member changing jobs could just be a normal career move. A new advisor could be a simple change, and a different way of handling communication could be seen as just modernizing things. But William saw these events as part of a pattern, where the old systems and rules seemed to be changing in ways that needed a closer look. The worry, according to the claims, wasn't just about single decisions. It was about influence. Who was making these decisions? Who had access to important information? And was the traditional structure of power at the palace being changed without anyone really watching? Reports say William believed the issue was bigger than just personalities or family relationships. It was about protecting the stability and reputation of the monarchy itself. But William also knew something important. King Charles wouldn't just make a big decision based on his son's concerns. The king had waited a long time for his role and understood the need for fairness, evidence, and careful thinking. That meant Charles would have to check everything himself. He'd have to look past emotions, family ties, and personal loyalty. Instead, he would have to verify every claim, look at every detail, and decide for himself if the concerns in the report were correct. And that investigation, according to the story, was when everything started to change inside the palace. So, King Charles got the report, and now he had to look into it. Would he react with emotion or stay objective? What would he do with all this information? Let's find out. This is where things get even more fascinating. King Charles didn't immediately get angry or rush into a big fight after getting William's concerns. Instead, he took a much more careful approach. He didn't just make a decision based on his son's claims. He started a private review of the information, wanting to understand the situation for himself and see if the concerns were backed up by facts. Reports say the king went through records and his own notes from the past few months. He compared details from William's report with his own diaries, palace schedules, financial papers, security info, and conversations he could remember. What made it even more complicated was that many of the moments in the report weren't big, dramatic events. They were small things, like a change in communication, a different way of making a decision, a staff change, or a conversation that felt a bit odd but was easy to ignore at the time. But now, Charles started to see these moments differently. Things that once seemed normal or easily explained now looked connected when you thought about them together. The king started to wonder if he had missed signs that were happening right around him. Situations he had accepted without worry now had a new meaning. For someone who had spent years trusting the people closest to him, this was hard to process. It wasn't just about disagreements or managing the palace anymore. It was about whether important information was reaching him fully and whether some decisions were made without the oversight he expected. According to the reports, Charles took his time before deciding what to do next, because any action would have big consequences. It involved not just his personal relationship with Camilla, but also the stability and public image of the whole monarchy. But after looking at everything and reaching his own conclusions, Charles made a move that shocked many people at the palace. This decision would totally change the mood inside the royal household. So, the king could see how the report matched his own experiences, but would he confront his wife in public or take a more private approach? And how would Camilla be treated because of all this? Let's see. What happened next surprised palace insiders even more. The change didn't happen with a big fight or a public argument. There was no heated exchange caught on camera, no official statement, and no announcement saying anything had changed. Instead, the shift was much quieter. Behind the scenes, Charles started creating distance through a series of small but noticeable changes. Reports say their usual routines started to change. Their private moments became less frequent, and interactions that used to seem natural and personal became more formal. The king quietly changed his daily schedule, altered plans for official events, and started handling important palace matters through his private office, avoiding the direct conversations with Camilla that used to be normal. According to the reports, even transportation plans changed, with Charles and Camilla not traveling together as much. The biggest change was in decision making. Camilla, who used to be an important partner in royal discussions, was reportedly left out of some conversations and planning meetings. Instead, Charles relied more on his own advisors and other senior royals. To the public, nothing seemed unusual. The king and queen consort still showed up at events together, did their duties, and presented a stable image. But those closest to the palace noticed a different reality. The warmth and partnership that had defined their relationship started to disappear, replaced by careful distance and formal communication. For Camilla, this was confusing. She had no public explanation and no clear argument. She was left trying to figure out what had caused such a big change in the relationship she had worked so hard to build. As the palace got used to this new reality, Camilla started looking for answers about what had changed and why the king's attitude toward her had suddenly become so different. So, now that Charles had set clear boundaries, what would Camilla do to fix things? Would she succeed, or was the situation permanent? Let's find out. This is where the story gets more personal. Camilla wasn't immediately aware of the full reason for Charles's sudden change. From her side, the distance seemed to happen without any warning. The relationship, once built on partnership and trust, now felt completely different. Reports say Camilla tried to understand what happened. She asked for private talks with Charles, hoping they could discuss things away from royal duties. She wanted to know if she had made a mistake, if there was a misunderstanding, or if something deeper had happened. But those attempts didn't give her the answers she wanted. Instead, she got brief responses and formal communication, not the personal chat she expected. Some reports also say Camilla talked to people close to her, hoping trusted friends could help her understand the change. She tried to find someone who could explain why the palace atmosphere had shifted. At one point, she even tried to talk to William, thinking he might give her insight into his father's situation, but that didn't give her the explanation she was looking for either. Meanwhile, the atmosphere around her at the palace started to change. Staff who used to ask for her guidance became more careful in their interactions. Friendly conversations became more formal, and she wasn't invited to certain discussions as often. The hardest part, according to the claims, was the uncertainty. A direct disagreement would have given her something clear to fix. But instead, Camilla was left trying to understand a situation where the reason for the distance wasn't clear. While she was searching for answers, Charles was taking more steps to change how the palace worked. And those changes showed that this wasn't just a personal problem, but a much bigger shift in who held influence in the royal household. Camilla's attempts to speak with William and Charles were met with silence and formal replies. But does this show what kind of King William might be? Will he be more understanding, or will he take a stronger approach? Let's see. Interestingly, the report wasn't just about palace operations. It also showed the kind of leader Prince William might become. William has often talked about modernizing the monarchy and creating an institution that feels more connected to today's world. He believes the future of the royal family needs adaptation, tough choices, and a focus on purpose. According to one source, William's leadership style could be very different from past generations. The insider said that while King Charles often leads with emotion and personal connections, William is more focused on planning, strategy, and long-term results. He's a leader who will make tough decisions, even if they aren't popular with everyone. He understands that protecting the monarchy might mean putting the institution's needs above personal relationships or short-term approval. Some palace observers think this is exactly what a future king needs. They say the monarchy faces a changing world, and a leader who can make firm choices is necessary to keep public confidence and preserve the institution. But others worry this style could make William a more serious and uncompromising monarch. A strategic approach might strengthen the crown, but it could also create tension when tough decisions affect those closest to him. Either way, royal watchers see the events around this report as a possible preview of William's future reign. A king who might not just inherit the monarchy, but reshape it based on his own ideas of responsibility, stability, and survival. William has a clear vision, but what impact can he have now before he's king? Can the crown be reshaped before he officially takes over? Let's dive in. As the alleged changes continued, the balance of power at the palace started to shift noticeably. King Charles introduced stricter systems to create more control, clearer responsibilities, and stronger oversight. New approval processes meant important decisions had to go through more formal channels. These changes seemed to be an effort to make sure palace affairs were handled with more transparency and accountability. At the same time, Prince William's role in the institution grew. Instead of just waiting for his turn, William was now seen by royal observers as someone already helping shape the direction of the monarchy. He was included in more important talks, consulted on major matters, and was closer to the decision-making about the crown's future. For many in royal circles, this was a big change. Experienced advisors who had worked for the monarchy for years were given a stronger voice again, and old procedures were restored. The message was clear. The institution was returning to a more structured approach where experience, responsibility, and loyalty mattered a lot. Royal commentators started saying that William's position had changed. He wasn't just the man who would be king decades later. He was becoming an active partner to Charles, helping protect the stability and future of the monarchy. This partnership between father and son sent a strong signal. The next generation wasn't just waiting anymore. William was stepping into a more visible role, gaining experience, influence, and responsibility before officially becoming king. And for many, this was the start of a new chapter for the crown. William's growing partnership with his father puts him at the center of important decisions. But how much experience will he gain from this? And is this all meant to protect the crown he will eventually inherit? Let's find out. By this point, many royal commentators thought the events had become bigger than just a family disagreement. It seemed to signal a deeper change in palace dynamics, raising questions about influence, leadership, and the monarchy's future. William's presence beside King Charles became more noticeable. His involvement in important talks grew, and people started paying more attention to his behind the scenes role. Instead of just being seen as the future king, William was now described as an active figure, already helping shape the institution's direction. For many royal watchers, this was a big shift. The Prince of Wales wasn't just preparing for a future reign anymore. He was already gaining valuable experience by working closely with his father and getting involved in decisions that could affect the monarchy for years to come. Some commentators even said these developments gave a sneak peek into the kind of King William might be. They believed his approach showed a leadership style focused on planning, discipline, and protecting the institution, even if tough choices were needed. But while people focused on what the report meant for Camilla, some thought the bigger story was about William himself. The situation revealed how seriously he takes his future responsibility and how ready he might be for the challenges of the crown. It showed a future king who might not just follow traditions, but is ready to make his own decisions about how the monarchy should work in a changing world. And the big question left behind wasn't just what happened in the palace, but what these events revealed about the man who might one day be king. Now, with William's influence growing, how did the family manage this without it blowing up in public? And is the future monarchy already taking shape? Let's uncover the details. When you put all these reported developments together, a bigger picture starts to form. Officially, the monarchy hasn't changed. King Charles is still on the throne, Camilla is still queen consort, and William is still the heir. But underneath the titles and ceremonies, many royal observers think something more significant happened behind palace walls. They suggest the balance of influence within the monarchy may have shifted in ways that could shape its future. William's actions went beyond just bringing concerns to his father. The situation strengthened the working relationship between Charles and his son, creating a closer partnership between the current king and the future one. The developments also showed a different style of leadership taking shape. There was a new focus on careful planning, disciplined decision making, and protecting the crown's long term future, rather than just relying on tradition or personal relationships. For some observers, this wasn't just about one private situation. It was a rare glimpse into how William might handle power and responsibility when he becomes king. He's long been associated with modernizing and adapting the monarchy, and these events reinforce the belief that he's willing to make hard choices if he thinks they're good for the institution's future. Of course, the full truth is still speculation, and only time will tell what really happened behind palace doors. But one thing is for sure, every decision Prince William makes, every responsibility he takes on, and every step he takes to support the monarchy is being watched more closely than ever. People believe they're seeing early signs of the king he might become. They're looking for clues about his future reign. So, what do you think about William's report? Was it all to protect the monarchy? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.